Hi and welcome. My name's Tolan and I'm the co-founder of ProductivityMe. In this video, we're going to cover the keyboard shortcuts of Windows comma and Windows spacebar, two methods to peek at your desktop, both for Windows 8 and Windows 7. First, let's look at the method for Windows 8. If you're using Windows 8 and 8.1, rather than physically minimize your windows, you can instead simply temporarily peek at your desktop. You have a few choices in order to accomplish this. For example, you might configure your taskbar settings by dragging your mouse to your taskbar, right-clicking on the portion of the taskbar not currently occupied by an application icon, selecting Properties from the pop-up menu of choices, and then on the leftmost portion of the Taskbar and Navigation Properties dialog box, go to the bottom portion of that dialog box and check the choice labeled Use Peek to preview at the desktop when you move your mouse to Show Desktop button at the end of taskbar. If you don't see this option as a choice, make sure that you're on the taskbar tab to the leftmost portion of the Taskbar and Navigation Properties dialog box. After checking that box, you can use your mouse to scroll to the bottom rightmost portion of your taskbar, and this action will instantly peek at your desktop. Once you bring your mouse back towards the center of the screen, this will end the peek feature and your active applications should reappear. Now let's look at what you would do if you're using Windows 7. If instead you're using Windows 7, the process is quite similar to what we just described. In order to enable the peeking feature, you would drag your mouse to the taskbar, right-click anywhere on the taskbar that isn't currently occupied by an application icon, select Properties from the pop-up menu of choices, and then under the Taskbar and Start Menu Properties dialog box, check the box labeled Use Aerial Peek to preview your desktop, located at the bottom half of the Taskbar dialog box. This being said, regardless of whether or not I'm using Windows 8 or Windows 7, I find that using the mouse to peek at my desktop is somewhat of a distracting feature. Therefore, I've chosen to disable this function on my own machine and instead use the following keyboard shortcut. On Windows 8, in order to peek at your desktop, you would press the Windows key and comma key. Once you release the Windows key, your active applications will reappear and your peek session will have ended. If you're using a Windows 7 machine, or perhaps an even earlier version of an operating system, then you can use the Windows spacebar keyboard combination in order to peek at your desktop. Combining the Windows key and the spacebar will, as predicted, instantly peek at your desktop. Once you release the Windows key, your active applications will reappear and your peek session will have ended. Alright, so you have a few choices. To minimize your applications, you can use Windows D or Windows M. To peek at your desktop, depending on what version of the operating system you're using, you can either use Windows comma or Windows spacebar. Thus, the functionality of minimizing windows or just temporarily peeking at your desktop is a question of personal and professional preference. In our next video, we'll look at the keyboard shortcuts of Windows up arrow and Windows down arrow, tricks that allow you to minimize, maximize, and or restore down single active windows. As always, thanks for watching and feel free to message us. Cheers.